stood in front of the camera and recorded a video for you. I think it's probably around 2 weeks since the last upload. I did do a community post about this, and for those of you who don't know, I had COVID. I know that thing is still kicking about, and I am asthmatic. So COVID absolutely destroyed me, to summarise, and to be honest, my breathing is still pretty bad now, and I've got a bit of a cough. So all in all, really, a really enjoyable time, but I've just been super tired the last few weeks, and getting in front of a camera, no offence to you guys, was the last thing that I wanted. Well, not the last thing, but it was quite low down on my list, so taking a break, feeling a bit better, and we're back with another video today, and I figured, why not come back with a film review. We do them here on the channel, and you may or may not know, I'm a huge film fan, and specifically MCU fan, and I decided to venture out of the house for the first time last Thursday and watch the new Thor Love and Thunder. So I'm going to be giving you my thoughts. I will have put spoiler free in the title, and the majority of it will be, I'm of the firm belief that movie reviews shouldn't really contain spoilers. You shouldn't need to give many spoilers in order to give your opinion on certain aspects, but I'll put timestamps down below of different sections of the video, and there will possibly be a more spoilery talk, but to be honest, there's not really many huge spoilers, but there might be just a bit where I talk about specific scenes that I enjoyed, but if I do that, you'll find the timestamps down below. So, Thor Love and Thunder. This movie has had a lot of mixed reviews, to say the least. I mean, I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes in the slightest, but it's got a really low score on there. And just looking at people's opinions on TikTok and stuff, it really is. To me, it seems like this film's a bit like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. Me personally, I absolutely love it. Now, I briefly mentioned TikTok there. Towards the end of this video, I'm gonna give my view slash have a little bit of a rant on how I think TikTok, in tandem with Spider-Man No Way Home, it's doing more harm to the MCU and its releases than good, in my opinion, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I really loved this film. I can, however, see why people may hate this film. It's really not going to be for everybody. A lot of the successful elements of Thor Ragnarok, which is my favourite MCU movie ever, and I really don't think it's ever going to get toppled, to be honest. It took a lot of those elements, mainly the comedy, and really doubled down on it. And, well, I've written some notes, so rather than rambling, I'm going to stick to my notes so I don't fall into like a bit of confusion on what I'm actually saying. So I'll begin with the strengths of the movie, because I say I love this film. It has its strengths, but it also has its weaknesses, its bad points, like all films do, to be honest. So, first thing I've written down is pacing. Now, the pacing of this movie, I believe, I think it's a strength as well as a weakness. It's a strength in the sense that it really doesn't waste any time getting into the action. Gorg introduces the movie, giving us like a summary of Thor's life up until this point. And then we're thrown straight in to the action, realistically. The villain is introduced very, very early on, of course. So, all in all, the pacing is a good thing in that there aren't really any lulls in this movie. I, however, think the movie maybe needed some more serious lulls, because it does really move at like a breakneck speed. Sometimes you need those scenes to sort of just like relax or add certain emotions, set up certain emotions for later in the film. But I'll talk about that when I get on to weaknesses. The next thing I've got written down, and really this was one of my favourite takeaways from the movie, is the villain. There was zero doubt that Christian Bale was going to kill this role, and he did. Every scene he was on screen, he just completely stole the show, and that was to be expected. He's probably, I'd say, the greatest actor in the MCU so far, at least top 3, but in my personal opinion he's the number 1 actor in the MCU so far. And there's a weakness of the movie linked to his character that I will talk about in a bit, but he was just so menacing, and they really nailed it with like the golden eyes, and when he's in the shadows, that's the only thing that was like glistening. But there were some moments where he was giving like a monologue, and it was just absolutely chilling. He was really, really fantastic. Is he the best MCU villain? Not, I don't think so. I think he could have been, and to an extent, I think they actually could have done more with the character. But Christian Bale absolutely nailed it, and every time he was on camera, it was incredible. So well done, Christian Bale. Not that you need my praise at all, because you are one of the greatest actors ever, but he really nailed it. I've got written down here the fight choreography I thought was really good. I'm going to say it wasn't as good as Thor Ragnarok in my opinion, but I think I'm going to be biased because it is my favourite, and I can never really quite put my finger on why it is. It just does so many things well, Ragnarok this is. But the fight choreography in Love and Thunder was really great, I thought. And sort of linked to that, I thought the CGI was actually really good in this movie. Mainly the environments. Recently, I feel like MCU movies have looked quite cheap, and the CG has been a little bit lackluster, and especially the green screens have been terrible. But I think what they did for Thor Love and Thunder is they did some green screen, but also some, I can't remember what it's called, but rather than having a green or blue screen behind the actors, it's an actual LED screen of the environment, so they're actually acting in front of a projected environment, is what they did for The Mandalorian, and that looked absolutely amazing. So I think, well, I hope they're going to start applying this more to the MCU films, because lately I just think the CGI in Phase 4 movies hasn't been consistent, I think is the key. The only one where the CG was really consistent was Shang-Chi, because Shang-Chi looked absolutely beautiful. Because even in No Way Home, some of the CG was like a little bit and I just think, well, I hope not, but it feels like the MCU are taking shortcuts sometimes, just so they can make lots of money. But the CG definitely looked really good in this movie, and there's one scene, I won't go into details, but if you have seen the film you'll know what I'm talking about, where there's no colour, but then there's sometimes a bit of colour, and that was just absolutely glorious. It looked so good. The next positive point I've got written down is the comedy. Now I think this is where it divides the fan base. Don't get me wrong, they really doubled down on the comedic aspect of Thor. Like I said, they took what worked with Ragnarok and really just bumped it with steroids basically. I laughed so much during this film, but there were also jokes that missed and didn't make me laugh, but still, overall during the whole film, I found it very funny. Of course, there are some cringy lines and there are some jokes that just aren't for me, but I think as Marvel fans, we do have to adjust our expectations just a little bit, and I'll super funny. And one of the ways in which the comedy is pulled off is because of the relationships between the characters, which is a fantastic segue into my final positive point. The characters, they just got this absolutely spot on. Gorg is the goat. Speaking of goats, call me an absolute child, but for some reason every time those goats screamed I was just in tears. Like, it's probably not even funny, and those screams are probably in there for like 10-year-old children, but there I was laughing my arse off at these screaming goats. I thought Thor was very funny. He maybe could have been a little bit more serious at times, but to be honest, I've seen loads of people moaning about how, it was all comedy and no drama or seriousness, and it's like, there's a whole plot about Jane, and I won't spoil, but you know what I'm talking about. Just throwing it out there, doesn't really get more serious than that, but mayo. And I thought in this, one thing that really stood out for me was Jane Foster's character is completely different to that of Thor and Thor the Dark World. She's got a bit of depth to her, and she was actually funny. Taika Waititi really did a good job of rejuvenating and reinventing that character, and her dynamic with Thor in this movie was one of the standout elements to me. They really sold it early on, and their relationship really carried the plot and carried the movie forward. So they're my main positives from the film. So let's move on to the negatives. So bringing back to the pacing. The pacing and my villain negative are sort of linked. So really, Gore was fantastic, but we needed to see more of him, and maybe that's me being greedy because I wanted more Christian Bale and his fantastic performance, but I just feel it went from Gore's origin to him facing off with Thor way too quickly. We needed a few, I'm trying to speak vaguely by the way, to not be spoilers. We needed one or two more scenes of Gore in action to really set up the stakes for later on in the film. We need to prove why he is why he is called the God Butcher, rather than we have his origin and then like a little montage type, not even a montage, but you know what I'm talking about. There needed to be more Gore, just some cutaways from the Thor storyline in the first part, just to, as I said, really set up those stakes for later on in the movie. That's really my main criticism, and that wouldn't have even added much to the runtime. I'm talking like 10 minutes more of scenes, and it literally would have been so much better. So much better. I've got written down here balance of comedy and seriousness. Now this is a criticism I've seen a lot over TikTok and stuff, and I'm not as strong in this view. I do think they probably went a bit too much to the comedy side in my opinion. But there were still some really serious aspects. I think they put more comedy in it than Ragnarok, but for me personally, Ragnarok had the perfect balance of comedy and seriousness, so I think they could have dialed it back just a little bit. And I feel kind of bad for having this last. I've dedicated a whole final negative point to this. I don't like hating on child actors, and I'm sorry if you're watching this, you're definitely not your Hollywood kid, it's fine. But I just have to say, the actor who played Heimdall's son, I think you need to stop acting. I feel really bad. It was one of the worst, not just child performances, but just performances I have ever seen. His lines were so cringy and delivered so poorly. It left me, like, literally, I walked out and it was one of the first things I said to my brother because it was so bad. It stopped me, it like pulled me out from being engrossed in the film. decision to be in this film. Like, I'm really sorry for hating on you, but it just wasn't a good performance, and I hope we don't see him again in the future. So overall, I love this movie. Barring some pacing issues, we needed to see more of the villain, and maybe a little bit too much comedy. I thought it was a great movie. I absolutely love the style of these movies, just the soundtracks and the scores, and just they've really nailed that down, and it really appeals to me. So for me and my tier list, I put it in A tier. I'm gonna go watch it again this week. That may change, but for me it's in A tier. I think it was like just in my top 10, but I've only got 3. I've only got 3 S tier MCU movies in my tier list, and that's Ragnarok, Infinity War, and Guardians of the Galaxy. So yeah, it was in my top 10. A lot of people are saying it was like a 6 out of 10, and I'm like, you're a moron. And I've seen some people say it was just awful, and you're an even bigger moron. But everyone's entitled to their opinion. Look, I concede that this film is definitely not for everybody, but people who say it's like a 3 or 4 out of 10, it's just not true, is it? And this leads me on to my little rant. I think Spider-Man No Way Home as an event has massively inflated people's expectations about movies moving forward. Multiverse of Madness was a great movie, and it tried to do different things, but those different things and the style and stuff got overlooked because Deadpool didn't pop out of a portal, or like, I don't know, Tom Cruise's superior Iron Man wasn't in it. Like, come on. I don't think people really understand that No Way Home was literally a 1 in a million, not 1 in a million, but you know what I mean. It was just like an event. It was an endgame level event. The most iconic superhero, 3 on screen at once. No MCU movie is going to replicate that, arguably, until Secret Wars. And that's not going to be for like 5, 6, maybe even 7 years, because they need to properly set that up. And I think TikTok, don't get me wrong, has done a lot of good for like the comic book community, comic book movie community. But I just feel people read, they see spoilers, because somehow people record with their phones. They see spoilers and read negative reviews before they've even seen the film for themselves. They make their mind up, they go and watch, and then because they've already got these ideas in their heads, they decide it's a bad movie. Whereas actually, if you go in, I make a point not to go on TikTok the 2 days before the movie comes out, because I tend to go on the day it comes out to watch it. So I've literally just got like a completely blank canvas, little to no expectations or preconceptions bar the trailers. So yeah, I just feel like people's expectations are just all over the place. But look, having said that, I know this movie wasn't for everybody, but I personally loved it. I would love for you guys to give me your reviews down below in the comments. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Why do you love it? Why do you hate it? And where in your tier list does it sit? Does it crack your top 10? Or is it right at the bottom? It shouldn't be, because it's not worse than Black Widow, is it? So, but anyways guys, that is gonna do it for this evening. I think I get to the end of these movie reviews and I start to doubt whether this was relaxing at all, because I don't know if you can tell, but I get quite passionate when it comes to movies, especially Marvel, so hopefully my speech doesn't speed up too much and it becomes completely unbearable, but hopefully you found it relaxing and entertaining. The next video I think is going to be a true crime video, and then next week I've got a history video, and then I'm going to do like a big review video of different TV series I've watched, Stranger Things, The Boys, etc, etc. I think there's 5 or 6 TV series I'm going to review, and yeah, so that should be a good time. So, but that is going to do it for this video. If you did enjoy this video, then please give it a like and subscribe